Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Mirko. This morning, just about to brew some coffee while we go live, and we're gonna be joined by a very special guest this morning. It's an unusual time for us here, but we are really blessed to be joined by Andrea Allen, the USA 2020 Barista Champion, and also the co-founder of Onyx Coffee. So get yourself a cup of coffee, as I am. I'm just gonna be right back. Wetting my pepper filter. Get this AeroPress on the go, and then we're gonna chat with Andrea. And I hope that my pronunciation is correct, because I don't know how to pronunciate Andrea. It's tricky, but we'll ask her. So I hope that you'll be able to join us today, because there's a lot of strong women coming up in this industry, and I'm so happy, and I really hope that lots of ladies and girls join the show today, so that we'll be able to discuss those matters as well. So I'm currently brewing a natural Mexican coffee from the boys at Gridlock here in Melbourne, and first cup for the day. So let us know what you're drinking. As usual, feel free to send through any questions you got, and we're happy to answer them. Especially at the end of it, we'll do a little Q&A session, and we'll keep it nice and relaxed as usual. And yeah, we are nearly ready to go. I'm just gonna pin down here a message, ask questions to Andrea. Q&A. We might get them through as well later on. Here we go. We'll pin the comments. And welcome everyone. Let's say hi to a few people. Greatest Shop, Isaac, ZX, Anna, Anya, Angel, Barberi, Marbel. Hi everyone. I hope you're doing well. Hope all of you are doing well. Gonna be much better after this, and we'll very, very excited to have Andrea on. I think I've actually had Onyx Coffee here in Melbourne before. There's a cafe that supplies international coffee roasters on a rotation basis, and I had that coffee, so I feel very privileged that I'll be able to talk and meet the person behind that coffee. So here she is. Andrea, bear with me. I'll plunge this baby in 40 seconds or so, and then we'll move on to the table, and we'll start talking. You and I will have a good chat, and hopefully you got coffee as well, waiting with you. It's I like the idea of having a coffee together with all of you guys. It is Coffee with Mirko after all. And hey Emperor, Artan, Jason, how's everyone doing? Hope you're safe, hope your family are well, and let's plunge. I like a little bit slower. Some people like it faster. I like it this way, but I'm actually skipping a little bit the process. I usually wait a little bit longer, but I'm really keen to talk to Andrea. Also because she's a busy person, so I don't want to take away too much of her time. Instagram gives her 60 minutes, and she got lots on her hands, so I'll try to at least speed up the process of my coffee brewing as much as I can. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in again. We got a beautiful episode up, so coffee's ready. I'll send the request to Andrea so that we can get the ball rolling, and please stick around so you can get to ask her all the questions that you would like. Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, it's always weird, but yeah, good morning. Good afternoon for you and good morning for me.
Yeah.
First things first, how are you doing? You, your family, and all your Onyx Coffee family with this pandemic?
Thanks for asking. Our family's doing well. We're all healthy. We're in an area that's not heavily hit, at least at this point, and so health-wise, everyone's doing well. Like everyone, our business is operating under, weird circumstances and things like that, but overall, we're doing well, and I'm super grateful for that. Thank you.
That's great to hear. I think it's a number one focus. It's very easy to get caught up into complaining about the smaller things, but as long as health is there, especially for us and our loved ones, is number one. I mean, your mother, I don't need to say that, but I assume that things were good because you accepted to come on today. So thank you for joining us. I'm very, very happy to meet. This has given me the chance to meet a lot of people that I've been looking up to, a lot of people in this beautiful industry, getting connected and staying stronger together, give a little bit of a relief time for people watching and a chance for us to meet. I mean, you're all the way in Arkansas. And
Yeah.
before we get started, Andrea is good?
It's so close, Andrea.
Andrea, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I try my best.
You're doing great.
So for everyone watching who will rewatch the live, because maybe a different time, tell us how you started your coffee journey.
Yeah. So I started working in coffee when I was 18 at a shop here in Arkansas, and I kind of just worked there for several years, started managing, and ended up getting the opportunity to buy some of those shops that I was managing. And I did that with my husband in 2009. We rebranded to Onyx in 2012, and that's just briefly how we got started. So.
Yeah, and it's actually crazy, but I've had some of your coffee about a year ago here in Melbourne. Maybe a year and a half, because there's a couple of shops that provide roasters, specialty coffee roasters from overseas, and yeah, it was delicious, and
Awesome.
I hope to drink more. So basically, you started Onyx with John, yes,
Yeah.
In Arkansas, which I'm not super familiar with geography, but how challenging was for you and John to introduce a new concept of coffee, I suppose, in that area?
Yeah, it was pretty challenging to start with. We were the first, essentially, higher-end specialty cafe in this area, and so there was like tons of education going on as far as like having our customers come in and asking like, what is this pour over? What does natural process mean? At the time, not very many coffees were being referred to by producers' names or regions or things like that. So we had tons of questions people were asking, and we did a lot of education in terms of just lots of free cuppings where we would gather up, half dozen people, 12 people, and cup your coffees and just talk about why does this coffee taste like it does. So there was a pretty big learning curve, I would say, for our customers around here in the beginning.
And eventually you turned that around, and the community started open up. I'm assuming that kind of the way unfolded.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
how important was? I'm just trying to picture in my head, but even though we've just been talking for a couple of minutes, I'm assuming that obviously your personality and John's personality was, and your staff were also a big component to build the Onyx community around your area, because there's a lot of conversation, communication, and you were. It's still a people's business what we do, no matter how high the grade of the coffee. So how important was for you to be present in the process, I must assume?
Yeah. I mean, hugely important. So we're very, very hospitality focused. I mean, I'm a very firm believer you can have the world's best coffee, but if you're not serving it well, so much is informed by what we see, what we hear, what we feel. Our experiences are almost exclusively driven by that. Most of us, I would say. So for me, it's extremely important. Hospitality is always in the forefront. And especially in the beginning, I mean, I worked shifts, 5 days a week, working with customers, working with our staff, talking to people, and just really seeing over time a big transition in what our clientele was interested in, what kind of education they had about coffee. And then in our area, we benefit really greatly from, we have our state university is here. We have several really large businesses that have headquarters here. And so there's a lot of people in and out moving in to live here and work for those places, or commuting in and out to work from San Francisco, LA, New York. And so we benefit a lot from having those kinds of people over time in our community, and being those people really looking for coffee experiences and just, beverage and food experiences in the area. So yeah, that helped a lot.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I think, you did fantastic job. So from the cafe to competition, which I read that it's your love and hate relationship.
Yeah.
Obviously, let me say first, congratulations for your most recent win. As far as competition goes, I mean, I think the biggest win was probably, becoming a mother and building a family. That's number one. So that's second, congratulations. So, and we can safely say that was also a big win for the women in coffee. Do you sort of feel a sense of pride as well as responsibility to carry on your shoulder, representing all the female baristas out there?
Yeah, I do in a way. And I think recently, in the last couple of years, it's gotten less so, but there have been multiple national competitions where I'm the only female in the finals in barista competition, and just the nature of that position, people start asking me questions like I stand for all women, and I really try hard to represent us well, but also not to be the only representation. I mean, it's very, there's so many people are different, that I never want to stand there and be the voice for women. And so I've been grateful that our at least our industry in the US has a lot of women participating, not just in competition, but in higher level coffee jobs, and doing a great job at those. And so at least in the last couple of years, that has been a really welcome thing to happen. And yeah, but there's definitely a lot of people that kind of look to women that compete in the US to lead the industry. And it's a great privilege, really fun, but there's also a lot of pressure in that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was having a similar conversation with Caleb Cha, and he felt the same as far as representing South Korea, because he was one of the first South Korean baristas to break through. And then obviously, thanks to Arnon and Umpol and Joan and all these other amazing people that came after him, South Korea was exploded a culture of baristas. So I really appreciate it, because I've been in the industry for about 10 years, and I can only really speak for Australia, really. But it's often been a very, I suppose, male industry, a little bit of, dominated, I suppose. So I thank people like you or Aga or June, and who really keep pushing more and more women to chase the coffee dream. I think that it's beautiful, and you shouldn't feel. I know it's hard to say you shouldn't feel pressure, but I can understand why there could be a little bit of pressure. Um, was that any particular secrets, or what did push you to the win?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had some really great coffees this year. So I used two different coffees, the Eugenioides from Finca Immaculata in Colombia and the Serra Azul Geisha from Colombia as well. And basically the Eugenioides is almost all sweetness. And so I combined that with the Serra Azul Geisha, which is really like acidic, tons of flavor. And I put those together to make my espresso, and it was not only super consistent, but the flavor notes were really, really clear, like from shot to shot. And I think for me that was a huge plus. I love wild coffees and wild processes, and that can sometimes yield shots that are like really, really great, but not always consistent from shot to shot. And so this year we were really like, we have to do something really specific and special with the coffee. And I think that was definitely one of the things that would put us over the top this year. So,
And I'm glad that they happened, because hopefully, if everything goes ahead, you'll obviously be at the WBC, which is supposed to be in Melbourne this year.
yeah.
We hopefully are going to meet all up, because I was very excited about meeting all these people as well at WBC. So hopefully that, and well, there's been a couple of people before you winning the WBC, so I hope that you can give it a good shot and
Thanks.
make it three for sure. Obviously I do a little bit of research before we go live. I don't pretend that I know everyone and everything, because that would be absolutely ridiculous. And one of my favorite pictures that I found, because I need the pictures for the posters as well, is a picture of you carrying your baby, and you still are pouring some milk.
Yeah.
It's just feel, I don't know. It was one of my. I didn't put it out of respect, obviously, but being a mother, how difficult? Because I saw my mom. Like being a mom is like two full-time jobs. On top of whatever you do else. But how difficult is not only to run a business, but also practice to compete, because I've spoken to a lot of people who compete in barista comps, and it's like, you don't have a life, really.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's that picture that you're talking about. She was sick that day and couldn't go to her school, but it was a pivotal day for us in our timeline. We had to make some decisions on coffees, and so it was like there was no other option. Just take her to work and make the drinks, taste them, figure out what we're doing. So yeah, but it's hard. I mean, I keep saying we, because John and I own the business together. We do everything together, and so it's a big commitment for our whole family. I practiced for about 6 months leading up to national competition. So that looks like a couple of days after hours at our training lab. And then every Saturday and Sunday, on Saturdays, I usually do 7 to 8 hours. And then on Sundays, 4 to 5. And so during that time, I sometimes am able to like get a sitter or a nanny to come help me with the kids, and then other times John keeps them. But it's a definite sacrifice of time for our whole family. So it's hard, but for me, it's also like we are the sole owners of our business, and so competition. I mean, you're not real geographically familiar with Arkansas, as you mentioned earlier, because it's a small state in a large country, and we have to really fight for our reputation and for people to take us seriously. And we want to be on the forefront of what's happening in coffee. And so the business supports me, it supports our family. And so we just all agree every year, we're like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to make the sacrifices, and it mostly pays off. So That's for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely, and I'm glad that it did in a big way. In the sense of obviously winning USA was a huge result, and
Yeah.
I do see the correlation between competing and as well representing a business because just yesterday I had a good chat with Rubens Gardelli and obviously he comes from a even smaller reality in terms of specialty coming from Italy and his 90% of his coffee goes worldwide overseas, only
Wow.
10% remains within the borders. But obviously winning the world roasting champion gave him obviously the extra push of like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
here, I'm in Arkansas, but in Arkansas now there is the 2020 barista champion, but who's also happened to roast amazing coffee. So, hello, nice to meet you. Come and see us. And I think it's good. I think it's great for sure. I mean, here you are talking to someone all the way in Australia that knows about your coffee. So
I know.
that puts things in perspective.
It's really exciting. Yeah.
Great. Um, So what I would like to talk is people rewatch this and I like to believe that a lot of them that want to follow through your advice or your story or your experience. What sort of advice do you have for people out there who are chasing their dreams? Because I think in these times where it's all doomy gloomy, it can get very easy to, I suppose, dwell and stay under the blankets or whatever season it's in there in those countries, versus you showcase how despite being super busy, you still manage to get what you wanted to get. So what advice do you have for people out there who are chasing their coffee or non-coffee dreams?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple pieces of advice because the world is different and I think will be very different on the other side of this. And one of the things I've thought of a lot during this whole thing is just that the coffee industry itself has so much spirit, so much fire. I just want to encourage people to think about not what this has taken from us, but what we can still continue to give in this time. So to encourage people to think about it that way so that we are more in control of what's going on. So you can give friendliness, you could give resources, you could give time if you're able to pick up groceries for someone or, do something for someone that is not able to do it themselves. I think that's at least a small encouragement during this time. In terms of business, I think my husband and I were actually just talking about this the other night. It's much like it was in the beginning. We are having to hustle for everything that we can do to help us make it through this time, help keep our employees together and hired and paid. And so there's a lot of hard work that has to go into running a business. And I think if you are out there wanting to follow a dream of being a business owner, you just need to know there's lots of hustle involved and a lot of times it pays off, but sometimes it doesn't. So to be persistent and, I also think having a good vision is really great. I know that part of what has helped us be successful is just having a really strong vision of what we want to be, what kind of coffees we want to buy and roast. And honestly, that vision changes some over time, but really chasing after that has helped us immensely get to where we are right now.
Yes, absolutely. And to that end, I think that the more and more I do this, the more and more clear becomes the fact that you also need to have a good, grasp of passion, for the art, for what you're doing. If you don't love what you do and you're just chasing a quick dollar, then you lost even before starting. And I'm not judgmental towards people who chase a dollar because there's a lot of conditioning by society and a lot of conditioning by different influencers around our friends and circles. So I get that. But ultimately, I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of businesses here going out of business or not doing super well because they were not a barista or a cafe owner in the first place, or a chef or a waiter. They they thought coffee could have been a good idea to make some money, or their business advisor told them diversify your portfolio.
Yeah.
So you had all sorts of people that I had the pleasure to meet, and the good people, because I used to work for a few coffee roasters, and but I was mostly on the road trying to win business. And when I was talking to them, and hospital, I'm sure in America it's the same. It's like, oh, where have you been? Where have you done? Where have you worked? And who do you know? Oh, yeah, John. Oh, great. I know Louise. And when I would hear, oh no, I just started. I used to be a mortgage broker.
Yeah.
I feel, and I think, unless you're super passionate and you love what you do, otherwise, yeah, don't even start, I suppose. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just to close what you just said. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. We actually had a question here. Usually I like the questions at the end, but hope that otherwise Caitlin, maybe she disappears. Do you have any tips for someone? Hang on, it keeps going up. Thanks for your question, Caitlin. Any tips for someone starting a new coffee shop or coffee carts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say one of the first things is that's important is location. So just having your business in a place where you feel like it's going to be attractive, either in terms of foot traffic, car traffic, depending on where you are, like, does it have a parking lot, or is it near a place where a lot of people gather? I think setting yourself up to be in the right position to get customers is awesome. I think keeping your costs low when you're starting is really pretty important as well. I mean, I think you want to spend enough, have a big enough budget to do things right, meaning that you have, nice equipment or decent equipment. You have a good grinder. You have enough money to build out a spot that's attractive to people, where they want to be, things like that. So I think thinking about just some really practical logistical things like that are good. And then having a sustainable budget for your opening and for the foreseeable future. So you kind of mentioned people getting into it because they think it's going to be a real big money making operation. And I think, if you're first starting off, you want to plan to work shifts, make schedules, make as many of your ingredients as you can, and things like that to help give yourself a cushion, because coffee for all of us is a really habitual thing. And so, attracting people to a new space or to a new coffee or a new experience can be really challenging. So you need to give yourself some budgetary time to grow into that. So that's kind of a basic some advice for somebody first starting.
That was very well said, and very, very, very good advice. I also think that people need to be ready, Caitlin, or others listening, that it's likely that at the beginning you will own your job. That's likely how it is at the beginning. You own your job. It's not you hire 5 and you stay home, or you do part-time. You own your job. And I also, to add to that, I think especially with the current times, and especially, it's also my industry, but I also think, especially in highly competitive areas, that a strong branding, strong presence online is really key for reach out people in your inner pockets areas, to be able to get to know who you are. And you don't need to be spammy. It's more about tell your story, who you are, make people think, hey, I like this story. John and Andrea, They're a family business from Arkansas. She's the 2020 barista champion. I want to go there and support their business or check it out. So you kind of need to create that too. I think it's important. And one that I've learned on my skin is have a good relationship with everyone, your wholesale partners, your coffee roasters that you choose, your customers, and just hospitality people is your, two most fundamental pillars of it. Without the people in the shop, there's no point having the shop. And then if you're not hospitable enough, if you don't show that hospitality spirit that you talked about before, Andrea, then it doesn't matter what coffee you have inside.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you said, yes.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Yeah. This is why I like doing this, talking to like-minded people and people that have, had similar experiences in the industry. I think another big situation, which is both connected to what we just spoke about, business, but also I feel going back into the women in the coffee world is insecurities and judgments are too big, are just as big as the pillars, hospitality and people. A lot of times insecurities and fear of judgment stop us from competing, start a business or start this coffee journey because, I'm worried that my mom, my parents don't want me to become a barista or don't want me to start a cafe because they want me to be a lawyer or whatnot. And I think you're a great person to, to answer this on what do you think is key to overcome these insecurities and judgment, being also a mother, which you can relate to that, I suppose, connection with.
Yeah. That's a tough question. I think that, depending on where you are in the world, coffee jobs are perceived as either professional jobs or as like, oh, it's a part-time job you work while you're getting a degree or something like that. So I definitely know, at least in our area, there is that kind of question that our baristas get. Oh, what are you doing next? Like, what's your next plan? And for at least like half of our staff, their plan is coffee. And so, yeah, it can be kind of tricky to get people to feel like this is a real industry. Obviously, it's one of the biggest industries in the world. So it's kind of funny to be, being asked that question.
It's true.
But I think part of overcoming that insecurity is feeling like you have something to share and really believing in what you have to share. So, if you're wanting to start a business and you feel scared to step out and like declare it and do it, I think like having a kind of like we talked a little bit earlier, but like having a vision of what you want to share with people, be it coffee, be it hospitality, what do you want people to feel when they're interacting with your concept? In terms of competing, I think I talk to a lot of people that are like, I would love to compete, but I never could do it. I'm scared, things like that. And I think what I like to encourage people to do is to speak from your own point of view. So sometimes people watch like a WBC winner who is someone who is so amazing and has such a perfectly put together presentation, and they're like, wow, I could never do that. And I always tell them, I'm like, no, watch them for inspiration, but then speak from your own point of view and what you have to share, because you're not that person. And that's a good thing, right? Like, you should speak from your own point of view, and then also to think about what you see on a competition stage. That's like a finished product of months and months and months. So you don't just walk into a practice space and have that routine together. So just thinking about, what is your voice? What do you want to share? How do you want to share it? How do you want people to feel? I think is at least a good place to start thinking about overcoming insecurities or overcoming fear in terms of, judgment from other people.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's exactly right. I think also that it's funny, but that routine is something that, aside from the special drinks, it's something that we do on a repetition constantly to our customers. And depending on how your cafe is set up, likely you have served coffee to 4 people that you've made and served to them. So that's another part. And I've recently, these days I don't have too much time, but Ruben's made me promise that I'll watch something on Netflix, and it's like a documentary around the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan,
Yeah,
of course. And I watched the first episode last night, and
I did too. That's so great. That's like all I've been hearing about because I love sports. We usually follow sports and there are no sports right now, and so that's all I've been hearing about since it came out. And last night John and I were like, all right, tonight's the night, and it was awesome.
yeah, that's funny. Oh man, yeah, because Ruben Scardelli, he plays basketball, and I'll ask him a question, and he referred to this, and he's like, "Oh, you gotta watch." I'm like, "Okay," and that's funny. That's really funny. With every person that's came on this show, there's some small things that I'm like, coffee is a big commodity, but such a small world. Like I spoke to someone who competes with a coffee machine that was sitting in my office when I was working for this coffee roaster. So it's just very small things. Anyway, going back to my point, I think Michael Jordan said that on his first game, there was like, packed stadium, and someone asked him if he was nervous, and he said, "I got no time to be nervous. Like I'm just playing ball." And that's I think there's some powerful stuff in there because it's like a lot of times insecurities and judgment comes from listening a little bit too much in here, or here, depending on how you function, whether it's the thinking or feeling brain, and you got no time. Of course, a bit of nerves, it's normal, but you just gotta go with the flow and start the routine. And and you'll be surprised because some WBC winners, they're nervous, but then they get into flow of motion. One of my first chats was with someone that I believe that was with Lamb Butler, and you share something with him now because you both won the USA Championship. And I said to him how I watched his routine, and it looked super calm. Like I was like, dude, I could have done meditation on that routine. Like I don't know, it was super soothing, like your voice and everything. And he said, really? I was like, yeah. It's like I was scared as F. Like it's like I was super nervous, and I was like, really? So we're all humans. So yeah, I think that's absolutely. That's funny that you watched that too. Can't wait to watch episode 2 tonight. So all right, so we kind of covered a lot here, and I'm very glad. But if I have to narrow it, because we don't know each other, what is your core passion around coffee? Because like you said, coffee is a big world, and the people who judge the coffee career are the ones that, while they're asking you, they're drinking a cup of coffee. So it's a paradox, because without us, they would not have the cup of coffee. But it's like, you got teaching, you got competing, you got roasting, you got building businesses, you got family, farm. What's your core passion around coffee?
Yeah. My passion in my life is people. So coffee is like the perfect place for that to play out because there's customers that we're serving, there's my team at Onyx, there's producers we're buying from. And so it's just like, I of course love coffee. But for me, it's all about people, and it's all about cultivating a place where people feel welcome. Someone I really look up to once described the team at Onyx as a place that picks up strays. And I remember when they said that to me, I was like, what is that? What do you mean? Like that, I don't like the way that sounds. But as I've thought about it over time, I'm like, wow, you're really right. Like our team is a bunch of people that are super talented, really kind, but people that needed a place to go. So whether they moved to this area and they didn't know anyone and they were looking for a place to plug into community, that's us. We have people that were bankers or professional people of other kinds that needed a place to start over, and that's us. And just thinking about the way that coffee draws all kinds of people together and the community that that creates is so beautiful. And so for me, that's like what I think about. That's what I work towards. And just trying to value all the people I come into contact with and leave them with some encouragement. That's my main passion. So for me,
That's beautiful. I resonate super well. Like I even put it when I used to have one, but I even put that on my resume. For me, people is that, yeah, I get you. Yeah, strongly. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of great examples as well in terms of passion. Like, you know, we don't even need to go too far. And I don't like to name too many people, but there's, you know, there's people who managed to reach the top spots in the world that used to be bankers or financial in the financial industry. And they found a true passion because they went and did what society and parents told them to do, you know, go and become an executive. They hated the guts of it. And then sipping their same coffee, they started developing a taste, but also like, hang on, I like this. Or whether it's coffee or cooking, you know, there's great examples. I met a lot of chefs who hated their jobs and they're like, I love going back home and I was in my zen when I was cooking dinner for my family. So that's when I was like, when someone asked me, what's your passion? It's cooking. And I started cooking career. Yeah, but people is for sure strong components. Thanks for that, Andrea. Hey there, Mr. Brooks asked, how did you guys started in coffee? I watch a lot of James Hoffman and he's relatively big to compare to. Thanks for your question. You sort of answered that, but you can give another shot because, you know, probably he just joined in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, I got started in coffee working a part-time job while I was in school, and I just loved it. I mean, I just was serving people all the time, loved the fast pace of it, loved the interaction with it, and so I started managing cafes and just, oh, it's still there. Sorry. Realized that people is my passion, and I do management and operations for our business, and that's really where my skill set is. And so I just had the opportunity to buy a couple of the shops that I was managing, and that's how I got into business, and then started Onyx a few years after that. So it's really kind of a progression, and like I really grew up in the coffee industry and learned pretty much everything I know in the cafe and managing people. And so, yeah, I mean, just being in the industry for a long time, that's how we got our start.
Yeah, thank you. And just because he said, guys, for me, it was just standard story. I migrated from Italy to Australia. I was meant to be here just 12 months that I met someone and I decided to stay. And, you know, when you barely speak English, your place to go to is hospitality usually, but that's where obviously my people skills and my passion for people was really shining through, and everyone was like, wow, like you're natural at it without even speaking the language. And then, you know, from the floor, moved up to the coffee machine. I had some good mentors. I think having good mentors, if you are in a city or in a position or a state where there are those people out there, like Andrea would be a great person to look at and say, hey, I need a mentor. I would say go for it. I think having someone who knows what they're doing, it's the best value possible. A cost of working for free almost, like, you know, if you could cook shoulder to shoulder with Gordon Ramsay and you want to become a chef, you probably will do it for free or paying him. So I think it's super important to do that. And I think also answer that to Caitlin. I think that before you open a coffee shop, we both forgot this. You need to have some bullets under your belt. No, what's called? Is it bullets under your belt? Anyway, you need to have some experience before you even think about starting a shop. Work for a cafe. Start from washing dishes all the way to, you know, junior barista, whatever you call it in the States, to head barista. So yeah, for sure. So it's great that you kind of stuck as well with the industry that you got started, because it shows that there is that opportunity. And I think that coffee, it can be repetitive, but like many jobs really. Um, but the conversations always change with people. It's also an industry where things can move quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
Things can really happen fast, and you can make them happen, because 1 minute you're there and the second minute you win the competition, or you start roasting, or you win a big or medium sized wholesale account business.
Yeah.
Things happen fast, for
Yeah.
sure. Sorry, go on.
No, it's like it's really interesting. We talk about this a lot, that coffee is like the place where all kinds of like social trends and the next things start. And so coffee is often where bigger corporations are looking for what is the next thing? Like what is, what is going on? What are the next trends? And so we see a lot of that happening in our cafes, just people kind of in and out, partially because those big businesses that I mentioned that are around us. But I see a lot of people getting opportunities to take cafes to new locations, to other businesses, to other cities, things like that, because people want that like center of culture that coffee provides. And so even though you're right, it is repetitive, there's a lot of like similar, you're just making drinks over and over, but there's also like so much opportunity that happens in a cafe that it can be really extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially if you're someone behind the bar, and it's something that keeps coming to the conversation with this show. I mean, a lot of times some baristas, and it's not their fault, they got so much focus in the cup or in the jug. Like the eye focus and attention is just on the process. They almost forget to, the best milk spinner when I used to manage a cafe was someone who spinned the milk without looking at the milk, but
Yeah.
looking at what was happening around them.
Yeah.
And if you got that communication skills where you can connect with people, even if coffee is not the industry you want to get into, you might meet the right executive, the right manager, the right person who will hook you up with your next career. So I think coffee is really, it can be such a beautiful bridge. Those old Italian bridges on Venice, that's how I picture it sometimes, where it connects continents, it connects people, farm to roaster. It connects, from baristas to the coffee drinker, but also from the baristas to the people serving, to the people drinking it. So yeah, I can see that. I just realized that. I should write it somewhere. Anyway, so this is a tricky question in these times, but it's something that I always like to ask. Onyx, family, John, WBC, I know it's all in the inner future and present and past, I get that, but what's next on Andrea's planet, or what would you like to be next?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's really tricky. I'm also very focused on tomorrow always. And so for
I
me
like
it's
that.
like hard to think a ton into the future, but I mean, I can answer in a couple of ways. So currently my plan is to keep our business going, and by doing that, keep our team employed and paid. That's my number one thing right now. Where I mentioned hustling earlier, I mean, we are just doing all kinds of things to try to promote ourselves, to talk about coffee. There's lots of stimulus grant things going around in the US, and we're applying for every single one. I'm on the phone all the time doing that stuff. So that's like the next thing for me. WBC, honestly, I was preparing. I came home from the US competition on February 25th. I started working on my WBC presentation that night. I didn't take any days off. I had been talking for months about the weekend after USBC being off, and once I won, we were like, nope, it's just keep. So I worked and I was practicing until the day it was declared a pandemic. And as soon as that happened, I was instantly in go mode in our business, and I scrapped everything I was doing, I'm going to do something completely different. So that's about 6 months from now. So I'm starting to have to and think about what are we going to do? What's the word for this time in coffee? Because it's just different than it was before. And, you know, talking about processing, talking about the commodity chain. I mean, all of that stuff is both important, but also in some ways just has shifted. And that a lot of the things that I was thinking about discussing, I feel like are almost irrelevant at this point. And so just thinking like, what is the word? Like I get the opportunity to be the person representing the states at the WBC. So like, what is the thing I want to leave people with? That's the next thing on my radar.
That's
Outside of that, it's almost summer here, and so swimming with my girls is the other thing that's highly on my mind. So we're about a month away from it being warm enough to jump in the pond or a pool or the creek or something. And so, yeah, keeping the business going, WBC ? And swimming.
that's great. I love these questions because I know they're difficult, but also they they highlight some values and things that I think people they can take on with, which is take a day at a time. Focus about tomorrow. I think when people hear it from people who they look up to, it's also relevant because like, oh, okay, I keep stressing and planning 15-year plan, which is nothing wrong with it. Then there's people like, oh, hang on, I resonate better with that. And, you still need to enjoy your family and the things that you enjoy. It's not just about hustle. I think it's about being humble. We coined the term humble mode with Lamb. It's about being humble as well. But you still need to work hard for sure. Saying hi to Barista Tiago because he specifically said hi to us, and then we got a question from Lance Hendrick. This is a big question, and I think probably this is going to be a good question for your WBC routine in a way. But how do you think the landscape of specialty coffee will look following the pandemic, and how do you envision the new normal for cafes to look?
Well, when I come up with the answer to that, I'll market it and make lots of money. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh, I need their question again. Let me see. Yeah, so I mean, I think the specialty landscape is going to look much different. I think that many cafes will not be able to recover. I know just from us having lots of wholesale partners, hearing from people, their landlords are still requiring them to pay rent, and they don't have the money to float a closed cafe for months. And so I think that our service model is going to change a ton. And I think hospitality is going to become extremely important. It's always important, but I think it's actually going to be more important because people will be on bigger budgets than they were before, or tighter budgets rather. And so I think that going to a cafe is going to become more special, at least in the States, than it has been. We've been having one of the best economies that we've seen in decades here. So people have had a lot of money to come and spend on coffee or spend on multiple coffees a day. And I think that's going to change. And I think that it's going to become even more important to make every experience very intentional, very special, not only producing really great coffee, but offering that hospitality and giving people a reason to come there. Not just a place to like get Wi-Fi or caffeine or whatever. It's got to be a place that really feels like home to them whenever it is that we're able to safely do that. So I think that cafes we're gonna change a lot. I'm also trying to take heart from the past. I personally have mourned all kinds of things during this time, just thinking like I'll never be able to go visit a cafe and just sit there with a group of people again. And I know that that's not true because I see all of the things that have come before us where people were really ill, world wars, things that totally disrupted the pieces of social life that we really love. And so I do know it's going to recover at some point, but I think it's going to be a long game. And I've seen lots of companies innovating and doing all kinds of stuff to try to raise revenue during this time. And I think on the other side, it's going to be really important for those that make it to the other side to be really intentional about what they're doing and to treat people really well.
That's beautiful. Like, really, I hope that people have listened to every single word that you said. Very relevant for sure. It's hard to add to that. My 2 cents is that, unfortunately, and I can only speak for Australia, obviously, look, we're going to have differentiation between countries. Some countries got hit harder than others, and different economies around the world. I think it's going to impact everyone. What I see, I think there's going to be a natural selection, and we go back on earlier topic. I think the people who were not meant to be in the industry and they just taken advantage, and they, invested in the industry, started a cafe without experience. They were already in unsafe waters because they didn't know what they were doing. I've seen a lot of people in that situation the past years, but they were always getting by. So unfortunately, we're going to see those businesses as well going down first. Which, look, let's look at the glass half full. Maybe they didn't love it. Maybe they were just there because they had to, and this will get them to their next chapter. So hopefully as safe as possible. And you're right. I've been telling this to a lot of people, even my family, around different topic. The human brains is developed in a way that we try to remove bad memories from our brain. So we kind of have assured memories, but we passed so many events. When I was talking to my family, or Italy in general, got hit by Chernobyl, say, years back.
Wow.
And for many months and even years, you couldn't drink water without boiling it, or you couldn't pick up mushrooms because they keep the radiations. But now we've forgotten about that because we go and pick mushrooms, we drink water. Like, things move on, like time goes by, and if anything, environmental issues are probably going to be playing another major impact on the longer run, this pandemic.
Yeah.
And look, I think that you're absolutely right. The experience. Yeah. And that's what I said. You can recall from my YouTube videos that I uploaded from past shows. It's going to be lifting your eyes and making it about the customers and giving them a good experience, and just stay strong as a community and make it about people, which you and I just answered the next question, which was, what's the best way to save coffee? That's what we said, I think. It's crazy because I think it's just when we're under an hour, just and Instagram cuts it after 60 minutes. I always give people the chance to stay longer, but I know that you got extreme long to-do lists probably. But I want to take advantage for the last few minutes to thank you, feeling very grateful to having met you and had an amazing conversation. I wish that we're gonna be able to do it again in a few weeks or months to kind of catch up again and see where you're at. Obviously, wishing you, John, Onyx, and your family all the best as far as the pandemic and all following weeks to come. This is like plug-in time for you. Or, is there anything that you want to leave on the table before we say bye, I suppose?
Yeah, a couple things. Let's do it when I'm in Melbourne, hopefully, for the WBC. We'll do a catch up. We'll share with everyone where everything's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to encourage people to stay positive. I mean, it just is such a hard time right now. And, I just mentioned morning being in a cafe, and you so eloquently reminded us that things will move on. Things are going to go back to some semblance of normal. It may be different, but this is just a time. And I want to, again, just encourage everyone to be kind to one another, be kind to yourself, share what you have. It's a crazy time, but this will pass, and we'll move into the next phase of coffee and the next phase of life, and you know, it's going to be okay.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And bloody Instagram tell me the 16 seconds. And I really hope that I can meet John and yourself in person, because I think that you guys are amazing. So, you know, thank you. And have an amazing evening, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.